Give the call to the member for Cornwall.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. How will the Albanese Labor government's cost of living tax cuts deliver benefits for workers, communities and the economy, and what hurdles were overcome?
Give the call to the Treasurer.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. Thank you to the wonderful member for Cornwall for the way that she represents the 72,000 taxpayers who will get a tax cut in her community, 90% of whom will get a bigger tax cut because of our changes. Mr Speaker, our cost of living tax cuts are good for Middle Australia, they're good for workers and families and communities, and they're good for the economy. Every taxpayer gets a tax cut right up and down the income scale, and 84% of taxpayers get a bigger tax cut. 98% of teachers get a bigger tax cut. 97% of truckies, 96% of cleaners, 91% of police officers, 91% of mechanics, 90% of tax-paying women, regional workers, workers under 35 get a bigger tax cut because of our changes, Mr Speaker. These are the workers that those opposite have tried to dud and diminish, and they're still at it. They say they support our tax cuts, but their heart's not in it.
Member for Deakin.
We know this because the Deputy Leader said that, of course and absolutely, they'd try and roll them back. We know this because the Shadow Treasurer described bigger tax cuts as Marxism, Mr Speaker. If they really support these tax cuts, why are they still bagging them, Mr Speaker? Or if they think we're wrong about this, why don't they vote against them in the parliament? After 5 years and everything that's happened in between, all they can come up with is the old Stage 3 tax cuts that the member for Cook announced all those years ago. That's not a policy, Mr Speaker. That's a defibrillator. That's a defibrillator, Mr Speaker, trying to revive the Morrison government. They've learned nothing from their decade of division and dysfunction and failure in the economy. That's why their position on tax is indefensible and unsustainable, Mr Speaker, and that's why the opposition leader absolutely disintegrated on national TV last night. He doesn't understand that anger is not an alternative. He doesn't understand his nasty negativity is no substitute for economic credibility. Theirs is a recipe for higher inflation and lower wages and smaller tax cuts for the workers of Middle Australia. And, Mr Speaker, after this week, there are a few things have been made absolutely clear. Under this Prime Minister and his government, only Labor puts people before politics. Only Labor is the party of Middle Australia. Only Labor is the party of aspiration. Only Labor is the party of working people and their families and their communities. Only Labor is the party of bigger tax cuts for more people to help with the cost of living, and that's why we are so proud of the tax cuts in the legislation before the House.